Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Creators Mastermind Haven. Today, we're talking with Jennifer Hough, and she has been sort of one of my guides and kind of has helped me along with this wide awakening process. And she was the first person I thought of when I started this new series. So I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, do you want to be on yet another series of mine 10 years later?" And I think you are going to absolutely love this program. We're going to talk about flow, and we're going to talk about really how to, kind of craft and hone our visions through our energetic frequencies as a multidimensional being. So, Jennifer, welcome.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Jenith, 10 years later.
I know. Well, there's so many things I can just kind of dive in with you, whether it's like health and like actual embodiment, or if something like this where we can just say, "Hey, universe, we want to go direct and we want to play with the frequencies." So it's like every single call we've done has been like bizarrely different.
Oh, cool.
I love that.
Yay, I love that.
Should just do a Jennifer Hough archive. Today, I really want to talk to you about being the vision and kind of really being in flow. And I think I also want to play a little bit with what's going on in this world right now. I mean,
Right?
as an intuitive, you are like out there and things are changing so fast that it's like merging us together with this 5D living. So I kind of want to start there.
Well, there's the 5D living part. And also,
no. You have that look.
Yeah. Like, well, it's interesting because everyone has their interpretation of what 5D living looks like. And I want to take away even the label and kind of look at it for what it is, which is that we're human beings, and everybody knows at this point, and certainly your audience knows, that we are three-dimensional bodies, but our multidimensional selves are pouring through us. And the funny thing is that makes up about 99.39% of us, that multidimensional aspect of who we are, right? So since that's so, what makes, instead of calling it 5D, let's just look at the constituent parts as it serves the conversation about magnetics and about what the hell is going on in the world right now. So what does it actually mean to be mostly not three-dimensional? What it means, like just think about that. It's kind of cray-cray. So, well, then what are we made of? Well, most of what we're made of, over 2/3, depending on which science physicist you talk to, 2/3 is made up of pure potential. Okay. So it's made up of the space between the atoms, the space between the electrons, everything. So waveforms and quirks and all these things, but they haven't yet landed in 3D. And we're focusers of the waveforms and the quirks and the biophotons and all of those things that make up the rest of us, that make up the rest of the universe. We get to focus those by being creative beings and having ourselves, let's say, use the contrast. So think about what's happening in the world right now. We're users of that contrast that's what we're designed for. So when we resist contrast and say, no, I don't want any contrast, I want to be happy all the time, that is not actually how we're designed. How we're designed is to take difficult times and become creative. It's interesting because a conversation that I was having today
I want to say something right there and we can continue. But I mean, just the fact that you call it difficult is a conclusion and a judgment.
Yeah.
You're putting it in a box where this is no good. Let's put that out to the garbage, where really, truly, that is you just being in judgment of the situation. Do you agree or no?
Yeah, sure. Well,
tell me, talk to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It is a judgment. And as human beings, at very least, we might say, even if we don't judge it too harshly, we might say, wow, this really isn't preferred. You know,
Right.
I wish that this much contrast wasn't happening. Well, if you wish that this much contrast was not happening, just understand that contrast is necessary in order to create, and we're creators. Is this much contrast necessary for human beings? The answer is no, it's not. We actually have gone way out here. And as we get more conscious, that means we get more sensitive when people talk about themselves as sensitive or empathetic or empathic.
See, and
And
I actually disagree with that now.
yeah,
I don't mean to cause a
no, so
rip
do
here.
I actually
But
do too,
I
Janet.
actually feel that now that I've become more awake
Yes,
and play in the lands of these like other frequencies in my
yes.
brain, I feel like I'm resilient and
So
don't feel like I'm aware
perfect.
but not sensitive. Okay, go
I
for it.
love that. That's
Okay,
perfect. So let's build a
cool.
bridge to what you just said, because that's exactly true.
Okay, cool.
So here's
So
the
so
thing.
that you have to go through this meat of sensitivity and a little bit like way too
Maybe,
many guides talking. Okay.
maybe. But
All right.
let's talk about, like, I
Keep playing.
love breaking all that stuff down because you're dead on. You are absolutely correct. But here's the thing about calling ourselves empathic or overly sensitive. No, every human being was born sensitive and empathic. What happens though is everyone is. The problem is when we have a lot of volatility, we become oversensitized to the world around us, and then what we do is we resist the catalyst, the polarity, the hard stuff, whatever that means, that's happening. And then we oversensitize ourselves, and then we want to hide, or we want to withdraw, or we want to live on a mountain somewhere, or we want to. But in actuality, every single human being was born with 75 trillion cells that have receptor sites on the outside that can receive biophotons of light that literally are what we're sensitized to. There isn't a person out there that's an exception to that. So, don't we want to get more skilled, which is what you're getting to? As we develop the skills, I call that your innate abilities. And when I say innate abilities, it's really our normal to be able to live in concert with our incredible ability to live in multi-D, but yet actually live in 3D and channel heaven into earth with the abilities that allow us to take the catalysts and the difficulties and allow us to become creative. Now, it's so funny. Just before I got on here, I read an article. You're going to laugh your head off. I didn't know I was going to say that. Well, I never know what I'm going to say, but I didn't know I was going to say that. And I read an article that was done by NASA. They were looking at kids because they're always looking at people that are incredibly creative. They're looking for people who are solution oriented. So those are creators. So they study these 5-year-olds, and 98% of the 5-year-olds are in genius category as far as creativity. Like, isn't that fun?
Yeah,
And
it's funny because I saw not recently, but a few months ago,
yeah,
read a very similar thing about like you're born genius and like
yes,
and then they stopped testing adults because they were like,
2%.
why would we test them? Because they're just going to be like, it's going to look really sad.
The statistic, well, they just did it, and the
Mm,
statistic is, so when you're
good
15
number.
years old, you're down to, I think, 60%. And when you're an adult, you're down to 2%. So what happens? Because remember, we're talking about these
The
times of
world.
right?
Sorry.
But what happens is, instead of being vulnerable to the world, and one might think, why the hell would I want to be vulnerable to the world right now? It's a different kind of vulnerable. It's more like having your cells available to the 99.39% of you that contains, in physics, there's a law that says if there's a problem, there are multiple solutions that many people can catch up with. So think of all the problems that are in the world right now, and think of all the solutions that must be birthed in the 99.39% of us. Physics already contains the solutions. Imagine a child that is, I don't know, that is 98% genius at their ability to manufacture solutions, right? And that as adults, we're only two. Is no wonder it's so hard to solve the world's problems. We've Where creativity and accessing solutions come from is our ability to say, yes, I'm vulnerable to the entire universe. But what does a kid have different than we do? A kid's perception is that they're safe because their parents are supposedly taking care of them, but they're no more safe than their parents in this world. A bomb can be dropped on them just as much as it's not going to stop anyone. You know what I mean? So the thing is we have access to the same genius. That's why I love calling, when I talk to my clients, I'm always talking about accessing your cosmic 3-year-old, your C3YO, instead of C3PO. You are literally, you have 75 trillion cells that have receptor sites to biophotons that deliver information, not just biophotons. There's also waveforms and, as I love heart math. They're talking about different ways we receive information that transcends the mind's history. Because if we go by our history or by television, we're only going to recreate what we've already been exposed to, and our life already looks the way it looks because of the history that we've had. When we start to make ourselves vulnerable like a child to the entire universe, just think of those words and allow it to sort of permeate you. Making myself vulnerable, making my 75 trillion cells, and I'm going to use a different word than vulnerable, available to the consciousness that has already created the solutions. And then what it requires is two characteristics. One is curiosity, and one is the presumption that this is an adventure, not something to control. And as soon as you put those things, it's a dance, it's not a wrestling match. When you put those two things together, and then I mentioned something early that's really important, and that those are your innate abilities. Imagine that you have multidimensional DNA that is connected to your 99.139% of you, that is included in what you call a you. So I look at Jeneth and I see your body and your glorious resonance. And because I'm and in fact, beyond intuitive, just being able to see people holographically as I do, you can see how integrated someone is with the reason they were born. So, and it shows up as a multidimensional glow that's not necessarily seeable with your eyeballs, but it's experienceable with your 75 trillion cells. So you can experience someone that has brought back many, many splintered pieces of themselves. Part of that splinteredness is what a child has, which is these innate abilities that they've made themselves available to, because no one's told them any different until they're about 3 or 4. These innate, these innate abilities that are codified, that your cells and DNA, your telomeres, your receptor sites, have the ability to integrate with. And those codes actually connect us, so does your third eye, connects us to the innate abilities that transcend anything you could do in 3D. Now, if you could access and be well practiced, so even holographic seeing anyone can do, it's just most people don't think they can, so they don't explore it. So, but in being able to holographically see, which is one of those innate abilities, just because it's available to me and it really helps me help people, there are hundreds of them at this point, hundreds of innate abilities. Those instructions, those codes allow us to dance with even the most seemingly dangerous of times, seemingly scary of times, which again, as you said, those are judgments. seemingly, perceptively, it looks like it is. But when you have your innate abilities available, which again you referred to, when you understand how powerful you are, not only would you not be interested in being afraid, but you would be far more interested and curious about those solutions that are available, which is literally knowing that this time in our history was coming. It's literally why I teach what I teach. How can you actually thrive in times where there's so much polarity? Well, if you're a
Yeah, well, and I
creator,
just wanna add to this
yeah,
just a couple
yeah, go.
things. One, children are in an alpha state until they're, like, 5 years old.
Yep.
Like, their brain is, like, receiving everything. So in some way, we've also trained ourselves out of that,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And you wonder, is that just this collective consciousness that trains us out of that
Partially.
because we're so polarized, right?
Yeah. Well,
And it's like all the Buddhas and everybody's like beginner's mind,
right. And so
right?
here's the
It's like
thing.
it's so aligned with this. I
It
love
is.
it.
It
Yeah.
is. And what's so cool, Jeneth, is that when we're parents, we don't want our children to get hurt. Well, aren't you already training them into fear, which makes the outside world scary? And you might say, yeah, but Jennifer, it's true. Like you don't walk into
Mhm.
the street because they'll get hit by a car. Well,
Right? Well,
well,
yeah, you have to learn some things.
but do you have to be afraid of that, or do you have to
Mhm.
just learn it?
Right.
Does it have to be something scary, like you're gonna be sidewalk pizza if
Well,
you
even like the hot stove example, right? No, no,
yeah,
no, no, no. I mean, there's like all this like other energy in
but
it,
that's the
you know?
parents' fear,
I know,
right? I mean, let them
but
touch
they
the
just
stove. They're not gonna
right,
lose their finger by touching the stove. They'll just cry a lot and they'll
right.
never do it again,
Yeah.
right? So, I'm not saying let them run across the back of the sofa with a pair of scissors in their hand, but
Be too damaging to me.
unless you want your drapes sheared. But
And your walls colored with pictures was also one. But, that is kinda it's like a naughty dog,
yeah.
They're not really naughty, they're just being themselves.
They're like, "I wanna play with everything." It's like, "Woo, I'm vulnerable to the entire universe." And how many times did we all run across the back of the sofa with scissors in our hands and nothing, absolutely nothing happened, you know? So it's not to say don't be wise and don't teach them wisdom, but wisdom with fear is no longer wisdom. Wisdom with fear is vigilance for something going wrong, and that is not wisdom. So there's a way of teaching wise vigilance without a need to have them walk around now in the wrestling match for life. So those superpowers, those innate abilities, they're everything right now. In this world, that's what has I can see even in you, that's what has you feel confidence, or you feel like, oh, it's time to play with something new, or you feel like, all of those things. It's because you're letting yourself be vulnerable to the entire universe. But in order to do that, one has to start to here, let me give a scenario because this is just nebulous unless you give an example. So you go out in the world and someone says, hey, let's play with being an Olympic hurdler. Let's get a gold medal as a hurdler. And so someone says, okay, just go join the Olympics, go. No, your innate abilities are like you being an Olympic level a human being. It's like having a mastery level of being able to dance with the ebbs and flows and the craziness of this world, right? So you can't just say go when you literally have forgotten all your innate abilities and there's new ones that you haven't even embodied. So at first you get a coach, right? You get a coach for a little bit, and then you get someone who knows nutrition, and then you get someone who, you get all the people that actually give you the experience. And so just like you and I, we all everyone that's listening right now, it really serves them to have the experience of embodying their innate abilities. I mean, because once you embody your innate abilities, you can be that, you can have the level of confidence that I feel coming from you, certainly comes from me. Not to say that I don't have those days where something crazy happened in the world and I just go, what now?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. It's like, "Wait, my internal landscape didn't match that
yeah,
outside
yeah.
me."
I wasn't expecting that one. Okay, how do I catch? And then I ask, I don't go, "Oh, I got to get under the covers." I go, what do I need to embody to be able to play with that too? How can I
Mhm.
include that in my ability to be in mastery in life? What do I need to know? What do higher levels have for me? And then I go on in the process of embodiment, right? Which is literally what we teach. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's, what that brings up, I'm a teenager, and, oh my gosh, we've dealt with so much, but I had a client that had a teenager, a boy, and he, attempted suicide, and I was like, "Ooh," I've had my things with this one, but
Yeah.
that one's like out of my realm.
Right. Right,
Yeah,
right,
because
right.
sometimes you go in these beyond areas where you're just like your vigilant system's like, "Oh my god, I cannot even imagine."
Right.
What are your tools and skills in embodiment that, like, help, hone in so that your vigilant system can drop in those situations like that when if that something like that would happen to you, an emergency kinda thing?
Well, I stop when let's see. What's something that I want to give an example that's happened. Oh, okay, perfect example. So my husband, I'm going to be going away, and my husband is away right now speaking at a conference,
Mm,
and he had two plane delays because of some weather, I think in Dallas or something, and I'm only going to get basically 3 hours in the morning with him and a drive to the airport.
mm,
Meanwhile, I thought I was gonna have 2 full days.
mhm,
And so I wasn't expecting that. So the first thing is to understand the realm of expectation.
mm,
When we have an expectation, what happens is when life doesn't measure up to it, there's an upset. So there's a little tool uh, that I use. Basically, it's a phrase. Now I got to tell you, embodying this is a whole different process. This isn't the thing that we're talking about right now is an intellectual process, right? I'm giving an intellectual tool. Ultimately, I always want people to embody this because then you don't have to think intellectually about this tool. You just are living like it's true. So if you were to embody what I'm about to say, it would be an embodiment of the idea that everything happens for you. So in other
mhm,
words, not because you have to say it over and over and affirm it, but actually as you gather evidence and you understand the laws of physics, you'll just understand that everything cannot happen anything other than for you. So, but before we get there, and we haven't done the brain bridges to be able to understand life that way,
mhm,
then we can use a tool. And the place I go is this is not what I expected, but it must have happened for me. How did it? And I asked the question,
mhm,
how did it happen for me? And I instantly start to be vigilant, and I'll tell you exactly what happened, vigilant for the solutions. So I realized that over the last 4 months, my husband and I usually do this exercise at the end of the night where I ask him 5 questions. One of them is, what was your favorite part of the day? And then, what was your least favorite part of the day? And then, what did you learn today? And then, what do you appreciate about yourself? And then there's one other question. I'm not thinking about it right now, but I love those questions, right? Because it develops some intimacy with him. And I realized that for the last 3, 4 months, we haven't been doing it.
mhm,
So we haven't been doing it. And so I thought, you know, well, while he's not here, I'm going to start doing that again. So we started doing it last night, and then we'll do it again today, and then we'll do it on the ride tomorrow. And what that does is it sort of kindles that closeness. And it happened for us because we probably would have just bipped along without doing my favorite exercise in the whole wide world. So that's just one thing that happened. Several other things happened too. But I never would have been looking with a child's mind, cosmic 3-year-old, for those solutions if I had just been depressed that I wasn't going to see my husband.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, some of my work that I've done is really gotten to the point nothing happens to us.
Ever.
No. It
Never.
was created for us. Yeah.
It's also magnetic, right? So in our evolution, what happens is oftentimes, you know, for instance, in my evolution, taking that closeness for granted when we're in a time of great change in the world, that groundedness with the people we love and that connection, it means a lot. It starts to, and the craziness out there starts to reprioritize things for you. It's not like the love didn't matter and so we could take 3 or 4 months off. It's more like, yeah, that love is a priority to me. That really matters to me. And the cool thing is, now I think I've shared this with you way back when, but I swear to God, it's one of my favorite pieces of science for spirituality I've ever heard. And that is that when we're you remember Hawkins' book where he would do kinesiology to, you know, so when we're above a certain frequency, there's this really cool thing that ensues. Our innate abilities are not as available to us below neutral, wherever neutral is. He says 400. He just made that up, but let's say his 400, right? So, but if we're feeling neutral, to a degree, our innate abilities, our superpowers are available. Cellularly, okay, cellularly, there's a receptor site for synchrotronic radiation, the very synchrotronic radiation that are the biophotons that contain the codes for your superpowers. So the codes for your superpowers, there's a receptor site on the outside of your cells. The receptor site for those codes are not available because when you're lower than neutral, because the receptor sites aren't
Oh.
activated until you're above a frequency of 400. So think about how powerful we are, those of us that are doing work in consciousness. So people have asked me before, how is it that the people, you know, how is it that those people can take over? Why don't we have that power? And I'm like, oh, you do. You're just not owning it. And they don't have what you have. Really, if even 1 billion people, even 100 million people, even 1 million people recognize this fact, the exponential shift that would happen. Imagine being quantum physically aligned with solutions and being able to manifest them by quantum leaping simply by most of the people on the planet, or even a
I
certain,
feel like
yeah,
I feel like you just put a piece together for me. That's
right?
like that movie, Lucy. Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, right?
And
When she
limitless.
just
And the movie's
yeah.
limitless too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't really get the end, like the last 4 or 5 minutes. I was like, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with it, I'm
well,
with it, I'm with it, I'm
right.
with it." But
That's
but
okay.
now it makes so much more sense, you know, I've been really like, so I got in this, like, really kind of, like, funk because I couldn't walk. I had this, like, injury and I messed up my leg, and it's fine now.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're in a place like that, you sort of get a little depressed, and I just started to get a little smaller and stop doing the things I was doing, and then I started meditating
Yeah.
in these state, you know, and I was kind of playing with brainwave states. I was learning about that as well.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, well, when I'm imagining and I'm just have my eyes closed, I'm more in an alpha state. And I just kind of was like, you know, when I would wake up, I'd be like, oh, I definitely hit a theta state or, you know, and one time I had like this ecstasy moment, not,
Yes.
you know, and it was like, okay, so I get that these are different brainwave states. Well,
Yeah.
that ecstasy state kind of sent me into this happy-go-joy girl that I have always been, but kind of had forgotten while I had that injury, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, it's totally.
And so I feel that brought those receptor sites awake again. It
Yes,
literally was, I was reawake again. And when I'm like in my own boring habits and, I'm not in that, which would make total sense
right?
now. I've never heard that
I
after
know,
all
isn't
these
it
years and
so
all these
good?
interviews. I've never ever heard that.
Yes, and it was from
Wow.
eons ago, and I was listening to a biophysicist, and then way back when I was hanging out with Bruce Lipton occasionally,
Mhm.
and and they were having an interview, and somehow it wasn't that they said this specifically, it was what they were saying, and I was already looking at multidimensional DNA and innate abilities, and then I realized all of a sudden that's what was going on from their conversation. I extrapolated, holy cow, look, holy cowabunga. So that's
Holy
why I
purple
get
cow.
so excited about teaching people their innate abilities, because first it's about how to get us to that frequency, but how do you embody that frequency as your normal state so that your innate abilities are available to you all the time, right?
Mhm.
And then it's like the Olympic athlete. How do everyone can hurdle. It's just how well you do it, right? So everyone can use their innate abilities, but you have to use them quite a bit before you get adept.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are using their intuition these days. A lot of people are using certain aspects of their innate abilities. But for instance, my last client today, we were talking about how do we activate the leaders to actually, how do we create a field such that we connect the leaders that are available to the solutions that actually have been trained in their own version of hurdling, but they're not hurdlers, they're high jumpers or whatever. But they have the natural propensities to be able to solve some of the things that are going on right now. How do we activate the field and them in order that they become more available and more curious and more receptive to and available to the solutions that are waiting for them because of the powerful askings that are happening from humanity? And we did a whole exercise on how to do that work in the field. And imagine if everyone knew how to do that. I mean, that's an innate ability most people don't even know about. Another one is how
Oh,
do you
well, yeah, all those trannies, right?
Yes.
Where you like can translocate, you can,
Yes. Yeah.
I can't like what telepathic is
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
All the
Well, clearly that exists on this
Of
planet.
course it does. I mean, it's actually very normal for some people. But what about being able to create new innate abilities and receive them right away? Even she said that to me. She said, Jennifer, I can't believe how quickly you embody new innate abilities. I'm like, because it's my new normal. It's my hurdling. And so, but
Mhm.
my job is not to be brilliant at that. My job is to be able to build a brick, just like, speaking of Bruce Lipton, what Bruce Lipton is just as genius at, aside from um, true, understanding how genetics actually works, he's also brilliant at building a bridge so that people can embody the wisdom that he speaks. And that is where I live. How do we give people the experiences in a very short amount of time to get them to embody these innate abilities, Jeneth? Because this is a time of great change. And if we have everyone in freak out mode, then they don't
It's
have
never gonna
access to
happen.
their innate abilities, therefore no solutions. Therefore, we're not building bridges to a new tomorrow. We're not utilizing these times of great change for what they're meant for, which is to create solutions. But you don't access the solutions from being afraid. And in order to not be afraid, you have to have confidence in your innate abilities, or you legitimately ought to be afraid. because you're not
Yeah.
accessing the innate wisdom that would allow you to be in a dance rather than a wrestling match.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So,
know, and there's a lot of ways to get to move into those more resilient states and that
yes,
more present
yes,
place. Uh, It's like,
Yeah,
'cause for me, it was, meditation, and
yeah,
'cause I avoided it too long. I was like, "Well, I know how to get there. You just ask a question."
sure,
But I felt like, if I ask a question in an alpha state, things change.
they do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what Esther Hicks, was I mean, Esther Hicks just, her husband wasn't very good at it, but Esther was a genius at it, right? So she received
Mhm.
all the answers that she needed. One of the
Well,
Jenna
let's
Yeah.
go ahead. You
Yeah,
go.
I was gonna say that I wanna really touch on something. That yes, there are lots of ways to get this little piece and that little piece, and over time, if we're courageous enough, we do what presents, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that I noticed is a lot of people, it just seems too overwhelming. And I
Mhm.
started to understand that there is a system for being able to embody those innate abilities. There's actually a more step by step. I mean, we're in a time where we're coming out of the masculine systems into a more human integrated system where, yes, w- there's a linear process, maybe, but the linear process falls within a spiraling universe.
Mm.
And temporarily, if you're on this much of the spiral, it looks like it's linear. But from the grand picture, that linear piece is actually kind of curved a little bit because it's still in a spiral. And so most people go round and round in circles. And I wanted to show people how to move out of protecting themselves and being in control and give them a system to be able to actually spiral into everything they've ever asked for. Actually have a system to be able to embody their innate abilities and then embody new ones, and that the sort of awakening world has been this mishmash of people having everything from meditation to access consciousness to, like, there's a million different things out there. And I just thought to myself, it's not that complicated. And because I
Mhm.
can see holographically, I started to be able to channel and download. So, what is that system? If we were to go direct, what is the system to be able to embody the ability to thrive no matter what's going on in the world? And also be someone who can build bridges, especially for visionary leaders who are looking for something different. So, that embodiment program was for me was the response. See how you resonate with this question, Jeneth. I suspect you're going to. In response to the question, what's the greatest thing I can do that would utilize the skills I have fully, such that I would wake up inspired and know that I lived the life that is the one that's dreaming me, and I could have that sense of fulfillment at the end of my days in this lifetime. It's a
Yeah.
powerful question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I sort of feel like I am in that now.
I think you are.
Now
It's gonna
now, does that mean I'm always in it?
no.
No. No. I mean, I blip in and out,
But you
even,
know
like,
what I
there
mean.
even while I'm doing,
Yeah, yep,
it doesn't really matter what I'm doing, but I will blip in and out.
yep,
So I think the bigger question is how can I expand first that state
yeah,
of pure joy, pure purpose. I'm, on I don't even wanna say on fire because then, there's chance for burnout because 'cause you've gotta have that flow, right? Like,
well,
that's what I'm afraid of with these other interview series. I will often, like, go massive, and
yeah.
then I will burn out. So I've been really careful in managing my energy.
So watch. What if it's
Okay.
not about managing your energy? So here's another
Mhm.
skill. So
Okay.
I was just
Yay.
thinking this to myself this morning, actually, Jeneth. I was just playing with this idea this morning. So it's so cool that you brought that up. What if it's not about, maybe temporarily it might be about managing your energy, like for the next 10 minutes or something because something came up.
Mhm.
But what if managing our energy? So, what if on this spiraling embodiment journey, one of the skills that we talk about in that program, for instance, is the skill to be able to, in the moment when we feel like, like Like, wow, like, oh my God, I could live there. That feels so good. So
Right.
as a hurdler, okay, remember that hurdlers are constantly getting new coaches. Football teams are getting new coaches, right? There are these new coaches, these new people often, some of my clients ask me, it's like, when am I going to be done? It's like, no, you're an Olympic athlete. You want it, like, we came here to like woohoo on the journey, but it's the skills. Think about it, Jenna. If we can embody more of the, if we can go on the journey of embodiment to embody more of the skills, because there is nothing stopping you from going to that place that you just showed like so energetically. There's nothing stopping you except the capacity, your capacity to live there. So what
Mhm.
I call that is a spiral jump, going from
Mm.
this spiral that you're on to an entirely different spiral. And to create a spiral jump is to embody a new level of an operating system, which is all part of what we're
Yep.
teaching these days, because that's what's going on. But here's the thing, it requires new skills to live there. So you can totally have that. So in the moment, again, we're back to in the moment. In the moment, you would be using the tools and the tricks that you have to kind of get yourself to not explode.
Yeah.
And then, but in the long run, you want to consider that when you get excited about another realm or another way of operating, one of the things that people miss is they don't understand that there are skill sets about living there. Kind of like the reason why you've heard this a million times, and so have I, why people win the lottery. They know they can get to the vibration of winning the lottery, but they can't keep the money because they don't have the skills. They don't understand. They haven't lived with that much money before. They haven't gone to the financial advisor. They haven't exercised the muscle. And so the money just disappears. Doing a spiral jump is exactly the same thing. So there's a whole process to do that. But imagine that this
Well,
is,
yeah, I feel like I do that, I'm doing it with wealth now, right? All over again, because I'm just like, but it's more me going into kind of a trance-like state
right.
and becoming it.
There
Like
you go.
I am going to be this. I am a money magnet,
Yeah.
it's like all these I ams, in these trance states. That's really what seems to program my brain. Now, is everyone the same?
No.
Some are, but my guess is you don't have to
You could do
go
it
that way to
in,
become. You can just
right.
say, "I am being this," but
Yes.
I haven't figured that out
That probably,
entirely
well,
yet.
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm,
Literally, what I'm talking about is a process whereby you can do what you just said.
mhm, okay,
So,
I'm listening.
and it's, and you're actually in a piece at the beginning of the embodiment workshop. What we talk about is exactly what you're talking about right now. This idea, I love it. You're so smart. I swear to God, you're just brilliant, Jeneth. It's like,
Oh, well,
I,
I received that.
I love that you really are curious and
Mm.
you really do dive into the unknown. It's like the characteristics of people that I love talking to, because we're all like, like, what else can this
Well, I feel
variety
like
do?
I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store because
Yeah, me
I'm just
too.
like, what I want to dive in deep and I want to experience, I want to explore it all. Even, and I am willing to explore the
You
pain,
are.
and suffering and this, that, and the other. And, it's sort of it was really good for me to get like kicked off my feet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I as much as I hated it and kind of felt like, "Well, I'm uncreating my life now. I can't walk. I can't even shop."
I know.
Me.
It's
And, that was
humbling.
an awakening on its own right. It's not
It's
all about me.
It's very humbling. Well, isn't it
Mm,
funny that it catalyzed you to this? I just went
mhm.
through that on the other side. My husband wasn't able to walk for the last 6, 8 months,
Oh,
and
no.
he's just
Yeah.
learning how to walk again. So I literally had to be the caregiver. And I'm like, part of the reason why this. So I was saying that the very beginning of that journey embodiment, what we talk about is what you said. I'm going to language it differently, and for both of us, it's fun to talk about in different language because we always get more from that, right? So in the beginning of the journey, there is in the beginning, and what I'm talking about is the embodiment journey in the workshop that we do, that there is this thing we talk about, doing a future activation in the now. What happens biologically when you're doing what you're doing, when you're what did you say, you put yourself in a trance state, and then you
Suggest.
I am
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is after we do that, so after we do that, which we do it in a slightly different way, but it's awesome. We have scalar waves in the room
Oh,
to make sure,
cool.
it's badass. But after we do that, what happens is we do an exercise to literally embody. So we actually do physical stuff that actually proves that to be true. So
Cool.
we embody it, we play with it, because there's another statistics that I read 4 days ago, of course, before this interview. Another statistic that said, so funny, that you have to practice something 20 times in order to embody it. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And they're like, but if you play with it, you only have to practice it. They said, well, if you play with it, you only have to practice it 3 times before you embody it. So by the end of the workshop, we've done that 3 times. Like doing the I am statement is, so now I can already tell your brain's already like, hey, what can I do? That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
did.
yeah, so there is a very deliberate process I've put together that it's just, I knew it was time, and you're such a great example of it. I knew it was time in this world that we get out of constantly being afraid of being here and giving our power away to leaders who are, most of them are just living out what didn't happen in their childhood. It's not even like they're visionary. It's like more like they're wounded warriors living out what they didn't get. And we follow them like they know what they're talking about. When we have 75 trillion cells, by the way, times 100 billion atoms each,
Yeah.
all connected to consciousness.
Yeah.
And we're not listening to that. We're listening to a fallible human being who's in pain. No. So
Yeah.
that's like that.
Oh, well, I'm trying to keep these pre-record short, but I'm having a live series after we launch this.
Yes.
So I want to have you back, and I want to, and then we can have people call in and ask
Oh,
questions, and
yum.
we can just kind of jab,
Yeah.
Uh, but you put together a small special offer about flow.
I did.
Will you share a little bit about that, so that, because you guys, this is one of the ones that I would say maybe you want to pursue. There's a
Uh-huh.
lot that I think you might want to pursue on this, but this is one that you might want to pursue. So I want to make sure you have the special offer. The link is below this video,
Yeah.
along with the VIP that I'll talk about as soon as Jennifer shares about her offer.
So flow means, so imagine that most of the time we're living in, how do I survive? How do I get through this day? How do I make sure I get done everything I have to get done? But none of that is actually being dreamt. It's not like being excited by your life or waking up inspired.
Mm.
So one of the things about getting to that state that Jeneth was talking about earlier is a flow is where you're not taken out by things that don't work according to expectation, whether it's all the way down to your kids, to your job, to the world at large. So getting in the flow means you're impervious. I'm going to even go beyond resilience. It's like you're completely impervious. So how do you get into that state of everything comes to me? So the first activation is the first part of the package that are the two videos that we put together. The second one is how do you stay there? How do you embody that and stay there in times of great change? So it's like the first few steps of how do you actually stay there? So yeah. So yay. That's what
Yeah, more to come.
yeah, yeah. That's what the two audio videos do. They help us in these times of great change. I just thought that would be the best combination
Yeah.
for what's going on in the world right now, especially for your particular audience.
Yeah. So it's two audios or videos, right?
Yes.
And the link is below. And as you can see, we can go pretty far in this one call, can't we? I'm gonna mute you for just a second till we figure out that echo. You're like, don't ever.
So
So
yeah, we can.
yeah. I mean, so just real quick, I want to tell you about the VIP, and this is also for Jennifer because I want her to hear it. After we end this launch series this week, I am launching a ongoing weekly series where we're going to go like 90 minutes and dive deep, and I'm really crafting and curating the best of the best, you guys. Right now, the VIP is the lowest it'll be. The link is there. The link will also be below. So please join us in this mastermind. You are a part of this. Like, yes, I'm curating a great list of speakers, but you know what? I know there's some of you thought leaders out there and visionaries that would like to be, really one of the guests. And I'm sure that you could be. So like, think of this as like, yes, and you get to ask questions and you get to pursue the speakers and the whole shebang. I really want a true community. So that's what's happening right after the launch of this. All right, I'm unmuting you. We'll see how the echo is. So yeah, this is
That's gonna be fun.
A party happening. And then
Right?
there's going to be live events. And, I think it'd be really fun to also have like some booths, right? Where we've
Yeah.
got some product, some of the really cool CBD products, some of the DMT products that are coming out.
Yeah.
All the woo products and all the healthcare products and all the greatness, all the hacks of this reality, basically.
Oh, there's so many health hacks these days. Oh my God. One day,
Yeah.
that's one of
Ozempic.
the
No, just
conversations
kidding.
you and I can have one of those, the anti-aging hacks. Oh my gosh. We're just starting a podcast about that. It's so deep. I love that stuff. It's yummy.
Yeah, I really, I'm really ready to work this getting younger stuff now.
Right? Me
Yeah,
too.
it's like, it was a fun ride. I wanted to get older, but now, nope.
Well, the thing is, it's
Nope, I'm good.
possible. Laws of problem solution. Consciousness, again, physics always has a solution. So there are so many solutions out there now, and most people aren't using them. And gosh, yeah, it's an amazing time to be alive if we can get to that place where we're vulnerable to the universe.
One of my speakers once said that there would you would never be thirsty if there wasn't a solution for thirst.
Yep.
And he said, so every problem has a solution. And I thought that was kind of wild. And it was like, my brain just went tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
I was like, wait.
Actually a law of physics. Like the instant a problem starts happening for us, the solutions already. So imagine that the people who could channel the solutions had to have been already available for the problem to arise.
Mhm.
In physics, you can't have one without the other, or the whole universe would implode, actually, not explode.
Because that's the order of universe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't that great?
Cool. It's glad we kept talking, because I forgot to tell you guys, want to remind you about the Facebook group. Please go and tell us what you loved about this interview. Give us your takeaways. That link's below too. And 10 of these calls have little word codes in them. And this code we'll put in at the end. Don't really like putting it in at the end. I like people like finding it in the middle. But this code today is A, the letter A.
Yay.
A for awesomeness. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was
Thanks.
such a great call. It was so fun. And I know we'll talk soon.
We will talk soon. Thank you, Jenna. That was a
Thank
really
you.
great conversation.
Bye, everyone.